Welcome back to my vessel of light. Tonight we open a quiet door with a single sound. One name can unlock a room in your chest, and forgiveness decides whether the room becomes a chapel or a cage. Iris Navarro had avoided that name for years, not out of hatred, out of fear that sound could shatter the careful glass of her mornings. She lived by routines that kept cupboards closed and calendars polite. The name belonged to Rowan, once a friend, once almost more, a human hinge in her timeline. They ended with silence after a rupture involving trust and a missing truth. The story gathered dust like unused chairs. Iris worked at the museum cafe where light landed like a patient visitor. She steamed milk, folded napkins, refilled the water carafe. Her hands memorized gestures that built a day. Forgiveness rarely visited those tasks on purpose. Still, the name pressed through sometimes in headlines and street signs. In a playlist she could not skip fast enough. She swallowed the sound and kept walking, thinking the body could store unsaid syllables without interest charged. One afternoon, a school group filled the gallery. Children carried worksheets and whisper energy. A small boy dropped his name tag at the counter. Rowan printed in block letters. Iris stared, the room inhaled, then returned to ordinary air. She picked up the sticker and felt a temperature change behind her ribs. Not heat, rearrangement. The boy laughed and ran back to his teacher. Iris tucked the tag under the register briefly, then decided to keep it visible. After closing, she walked the sculpture hall slowly, marble learning to breathe, bronze remembering movement. She stopped before a figure titled Listener. The plaque said the artist carved ears first, then carved a mouth that would not threaten them. Iris took out a small notebook and wrote 3 lines. Water before words, breath before meaning, kindness before conclusions. If forgiveness arrives, it can sit. We will see whether it fits the chair offered. The next morning, she brewed coffee early and placed the name tag beside her cup. She said the name once, slowly, letting consonants land without sprint. Her shoulders lifted and then settled. The ceiling did not fall. She wanted a method, not a miracle, so she created a ritual whenever the name appeared. She would practice one gentle action, drink water, step to a window, write one sentence to sort feeling from story. She also wrote a boundary that would keep the ritual honest. Forgiveness would not erase accountability or rewrite history with glitter. It would ask for breath and clarity, not amnesia. The notebook approved by feeling heavier and useful. At work, a coworker named Theo noticed the tag and asked about the classroom visit. Iris smiled and said names can be teachers without arriving in person. Theo nodded like someone who knows the grammar of regret. During lunch, she visited the Gallery of Letters, a rotating exhibit of postcards never sent. One card read, I am practicing being kinder than my memory. Another read, I will stop auditioning for doors that do not open. Iris copied both into her journal and titled the page Lessons for the name. She felt small electricity return to her hands. Not anxiety, readiness, the kind that arrives when a room prefers windows to mirrors. That evening, she called her Aunt Sophia, a person who had survived storms without collecting bitterness. Sophia said forgiveness is not a prize you hand to the other person. It is a key you use on your own lock. Iris slept with the notebook on the nightstand and dreamed of a long corridor with many doors. Some marked apology, some marked boundary. One door marked return to yourself. She chose the last and woke without a rush. Days passed and the ritual kept pace. Whenever the name whispered from a shelf label or a street mural, She paused for 3 breaths, wrote one honest sentence, drank water, and let the wave travel through without becoming flood. A letter arrived from a mutual friend, a neutral update. Rowan had moved across town, working at a print shop, playing bass on weekends. No invitation inside the letter, only weather. Iris thanked the mail for its polite delivery. She walked to the river after work and repeated the name to the water. Letting current carry acoustics away, forgiveness did not answer with fireworks. It answered with a quieter throat, voice less tight, breath with its own room. At the museum, a new show opened, photographs of quiet thresholds, doorways half lit, stairs turning out of sight. Iris found a print titled Corridor with Listening Light. The caption read, "Enter only if you can leave different." She asked the curator about the artist and learned the series was made after a family rupture. The artist wrote that pictures helped hold forgiveness steady while accountability stood nearby. Iris bought a small postcard of the image for her wall. At home, she cooked soup and set a second bowl beside her, a seat for the part of herself that still felt 12. She said the name to that younger self and promised adult protection. The soup tasted like relief. She scheduled a day off to visit the print shop where Rowan now worked, not to perform courage, to return a borrowed book that had waited years. She wrote a script for her steps. Say hello, handbook, wish well, exit. Morning arrived like a friend who knocks softly. Iris dressed in clothes that moved easily. She placed the name tag in her pocket as a talisman. She breathed at the threshold until her jaw listened, then walked toward the street. The shop smelled like ink and rain. Shelves of paper hummed with texture. Rowan stood near a cutter measuring flyers. Their eyes met with a flicker of surprise and then a human steadiness. Neither reached for old scripts. She said his name and felt the corridor inside her widen. He said hers and did not claim authority. She handed the book with a small smile. Explained the museum cafe, the students, the listener sculpture, the postcard that kept company. Rowan apologized for the version of himself that hid the truth years ago. He did not decorate, he did not plead. He said he understood that forgiveness might not be appropriate. Iris heard the word might and respected it. She set her boundary clearly. The past would remain past. No return to old shapes. Yet she preferred living without a knot in the throat. Forgiveness for her meant mobility, not reunion. Rowan nodded as if reading the same dictionary. They parted with a light that did not audition for romance. It auditioned for weather. Later, Iris walked 3 extra blocks to feel her feet applaud the body. The city answered with a bus that did not splash a puddle. The ritual expanded gently. Whenever any difficult name arrived, she repeated the sequence. Water, breath, sentence, boundary, if appropriate, a small action. A return, a donation, a cancellation. Forgiveness moved from episode to practice like a craft. At the museum, an older woman spent an hour with listener. Iris brought her a chair and a glass of water. The woman said, "I am practicing this with my sister." Iris nodded and felt community without needing biography shared. One evening, she found an old box in her closet. Inside lay a scarf Rowan had left behind long ago. She washed it, folded it, and mailed it with a note that said, "Thank you for the lesson on locks." No flourish, no return address. Only a kindness that felt complete. The mail a second time behaved like a priest. Iris realized that completion often sounds like boring logistics, which is exactly how peace prefers to travel. A week later, she attended a lecture on memory and breath. The speaker said the body keeps receipts. Forgiveness does not burn them. Forgiveness files them and closes the cabinet. The room laughed softly and wrote down cabinet like a spell. Iris updated her rules card: water before words, breath before meaning, kindness before conclusions, boundary before repair. If repair, schedule it, do not improvise. The card lived beside her list named groceries and dignity. When the director asked for volunteers to guide children through the threshold exhibit, Iris raised her hand. She taught them to stand at a doorway, breathe, and decide who they wanted to be on the other side. A small girl named Mina whispered a name and then stepped through. Her shoulders lifted and fell. She said, "I feel bigger." Iris smiled and said, "Sometimes forgiveness is a growth spurt the world cannot measure, but your shoes can." At home, Iris placed a small bowl near the door with smooth stones. Each time she practiced forgiveness, she moved one stone from left to right. The bowl filled slowly, a visible ledger of invisible practice, weight shifting toward freedom. One morning she met Theo for a walk. They discussed how anger can protect tenderness when used with timing. Iris said, "My anger guarded me while I learned the choreography of forgiveness. Now it rests more often and applauds from the bench." They passed a bookstore window that displayed a journal titled "Permission to Close." Iris bought it and wrote on the first page, "Permission granted." She closed a chapter without locking the entire library. The metaphor pleased her very much. The museum prepared a new installation. A sound piece where recorded names played softly like rainfall. Some names carried laughter, some carried grief. Visitors wrote responses on cards. Forgiveness does not erase pronunciation. It changes who hears it and how. Iris stood in the sound room and spoke her own name into the mic. Then she spoke the difficult one. The speakers returned both at the same volume. Her chest agreed to hold both without dropping either. She added a fifth rule to the card: celebrate without spectacle. She bought a single pastry, ate it by the fountain, and texted Aunt Sophia. "We did a thing today." Sophia replied with a heart and a candle emoji. On the bus home, a teenager argued loudly on the phone, saying a name like a hammer. Iris felt the old heat rise, then practiced her breaths, remembered her stones, and offered the teenager a spare headphone silently, the volume lowered. In the weeks that followed, she noticed mornings opening easier. Breakfast tasted less like preparation and more like belonging. The museum felt like a place she served and also lived inside. The listener sculpture began to resemble a friend. When the lights returned, a visitor thanked her and asked about the rules card. Iris wrote a copy for them. Forgiveness multiplied without becoming thinner. The lobby felt like a classroom that smelled faintly of rain and cinnamon rolls. She updated the stones bowl with a shell from the river, a reminder to keep practicing even when the calendar forgets. Shells remember thousands of small decisions by carrying them in circles. Iris wanted that kind of memory. One evening, she received a message from Rowan. "Thank you for the scarf and for making the air easier. I am learning." He did not ask for more. He did not invite rehearsal. Iris appreciated the absence of demand. She walked to the threshold photograph and studied the caption again. "Enter only if you can leave different." She whispered to the picture that she now knew how to leave different, without losing herself on the staircase. On the anniversary of the rupture, she took the afternoon off and visited the botanical garden. She spoke the name once among ferns and mist, then spoke her own twice. She felt the room in her chest choose windows again. She wrote another letter to her future self. "We will forget and remember, repeat and refine. But we will not punish ourselves for learning slowly. We will keep water and breath near the door. The house will stay friendly. If there is a name you have not spoken because it drags a net through your day, consider trying the ritual water, breath, sentence, boundary. Then, one small action, let forgiveness open your lock without borrowing your spine. Thank you for being here with my vessel of light. If this story kept you company, like the video so the candle travels farther, subscribe to my vessel of light and share one gentle rule that protects your forgiveness practice today.